Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from podweather.com and Internet Partnership Radio with the latest on the tropics. And of course, Tropical Storm Faye continues as it has the last several days. You can see it's been tracking westerly and then northwest, and it's now moving north-northwest, and it is strengthening right over the Florida Keys there. And clearly it's going to end up moving north and northeast. You can see the way the upper level clouds here are shielding like this. That is definitely an indication of where the track will go. And see this little curly Q down here? This could be a hurricane in the next few days and a serious threat to land masses further west. I'll talk about that. Here's the latest on Tropical Storm Faye. As of 5 p.m. Eastern Time, it was at 24.6 north, 81.9 west, and that was right near Key West. It made landfall on Key West at about 3:20 p.m. or so in the afternoon. Winds were 60 miles an hour, gusting to 70. It's moving north-northwest at about 11, 998 millibars, so the pressure has finally dropped below 1,000 millibars, but still the pressure is rather high. And we're going to see if that drops off anymore. The track here is later tonight, heading up further north, becoming a hurricane, at least getting close to it, and making landfall sometime, I'd say around 8 to 11 a.m. Tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning, in the general vicinity of Fort Myers, Punta Gorda, Charlotte Harbor region. And again, that could be much, much further to the right or much, much further to the left. This storm has a lot of uncertainty. We do have hurricane warnings up, of course, for the hurricane, the Florida Keys, all the way over to the west coast of Florida, all the way up towards Tampa. Hurricane watches, tropical storm warnings on the east coast, all the way up to St. Augustine, Fernandina Beach, way up here. This is most of Florida under watches and warnings because of the sprawling tropical cyclone with Faye. Here's the tropical storm wind radii, and you can see here the Florida Keys are definitely being impacted already, as are many areas of the easternmost Keys and South Florida. And again, this is all going to continue up, and when it becomes a hurricane, if it does, that'll be right around the center. There'll be a small area of hurricane force winds that'll just barely make it ashore. So again, even though this is expected to become a hurricane, the difference between a minimal hurricane and a strong tropical storm isn't all that big. You can see the storm surge max potential is right in here near the Cape Romano area, Marco Island, Naples, that region there, with the forecast that it's going to come on up in here. The right front quadrant of the storm will be the worst. Again, the Keys have had an onshore flow with this thing over the last several hours. Now here's the latest satellite imagery of Tropical Storm Faye, and again you can see it bursting there on the water vapor, and again most of the environment is clearly hinting that this thing's going to move north and then eventually to the northeast, and again we're going to have to wait and see if that happens. Right now it's generally thought that this system will strengthen a bit and burst and head into land, but right now it's just unknown at this point in time. You can see again that bursting there as the water vapor loop there at the end definitely shows an increase in thunderstorm activity on the western side a little bit more, which is an indicator that it is trying to get its act together just a little bit. Satellite loops aside, you can see it better on the radar here. Right there you can see it's definitely forming an inner core, which is something we hadn't seen all morning or early afternoon. We're finally seeing it right there. And I got to tell you, that north-northwest at 11 looks suspicious. It almost looks, maybe it's just because of the development stages, that this thing is either not moving or drifting east based on that. And that wouldn't surprise me if it does drift east. Again, you can see the cone of uncertainty indicates that anything is possible with this. So definitely a movement like this towards the western coast of Florida, somewhere in here, generally towards Sanibel, Captiva, Charlotte Harbor the next day or so. Again, the banding is definitely on the increase, and we will get that inner core, and that should be enough, I think, to where a good burst will bring this to hurricane intensity overnight. Now here's the latest forecast tracks, and boy have things changed. They're now all in good agreement. Okay, that's the one big change. And the other big change, stalling or a turn back west. Based on some of the models, based on the BAMs, the two BAMs, the UK Met, the GFS, even a slowdown and a westerly bend. Now, whether that westerly bend occurs soon enough to bring it back over the Gulf of Mexico and head towards Louisiana, or whether that occurs over land and keeps it weak and just drops tumultuous rains, or whether it brings it, like the GFS says, back out over the Atlantic, re-strengthens it a bit, and heads towards either the Carolinas or North Florida, that's unknown. All we know is that this storm is so uncertain that it could impact anywhere. Right now, though, landfall somewhere in southwest Florida, and then a gradual slowdown, but again, we just don't know. I mean, let's just say until here is where the confidence is based on the models. Again, if you look at on this image over here, you can see generally a lot of them are taking it back. The UK Met has it heading towards New Orleans in 5 days, which we do not want to see, and we don't want to see this thing over water again. Now, further out, you can see we do have this interesting feature we were watching yesterday, and you can see today that it's gotten a lot better organized here. And this is actually an Invest 94L, and all the models continue this west-northwest. And I got to tell you, based on the pattern setup, we had this pattern change that's occurring. We're going to get a ridge in here. The GFS model takes this thing, one of the runs a few hours ago, as a hurricane all the way across the Atlantic, then beyond this map, all the way across Florida, all the way to Corpus Christi, Texas. Do you realize what kind of high pressure you need to have something way out here make it all the way to South Texas? Well, we could have that type of high built in, which is why the models making this a hurricane right here are very foreboding. So we're going to have to watch this very, very carefully, because if it does become a hurricane, land masses will likely be impacted by this one. You can see it sitting there as the sun goes down. Look at that twisting right in there. That is eerie. Now look at all the dry air here it has to deal with. There's a chance this could just peter out, but at this point with that kind of turning, it's hard to see this not doing something in this time of August. Definitely we'll have to watch that carefully. You can see behind that another wave moving off here, and is kind of merging with this other wave here. Here's the center of where we're watching. Again, this could develop into a depression in the next 48 hours per the NHC, so we're going to have to watch it very carefully. The next name on the list, by the way, is Gustav, and we'll see if this is Gustav, and if it is, I don't want to see where that would end up. In the final analysis of Faye and our Invest, you can see right here, Faye is sitting, strengthening over the Florida Keys, and it is expected to become a hurricane, or at least close to it. It's raised 60, so about 15 miles an hour. This continued bursting, a good burst, a good wrapping of that eye wall that's developing, should take it to hurricane strength. Reminds me a lot of Hurricane Irene in '99 in the shape and location. The difference was that was October, getting caught up by that front. This is August, just kind of feeling a weakness, so there's a difference. Again, the impacts we'll talk about tomorrow as it should be coming ashore, and definitely you'll have those high tides, heavy wind, heavy rain, heavy surge, heavy waves, all that along the southwest coast of Florida, and the uncertainty of whether it continues out or tries to pull some goofy stuff heading back in. We'll wait and see. As far as Invest 94L development, the next 48 hours is quite possible, and models do make it a hurricane in this general area. From there, it'd be too early to say, but the general indication with this one generally is that it would continue more on a westerly course over time. We'll see what happens with that. 24 hours ago, the Westpac, look, we had a tropical storm. Look at it now. This is a typhoon. Typhoon Nuri, 80 miles an hour. It's a Cat 1. But let me tell you, this thing is forecast to be a Cat 3, and look at that. Just skim right along the areas of the Philippines. As a monster typhoon. Head in. This could get well above Cat 3 if it keeps up this type of satellite appearance. You can see the center right in there. Lopsided to the south and east, but once that convection wraps, Nuri should definitely be strengthening. I'm Mike Naso from podweather.com. Stay tuned to IPR 365 for continuous live coverage of Tropical Storm Faye as it heads towards South Florida. Stay tuned.